The silent move will drive him crazy. Watch it now. Ladies, let me ask you something. When was the last time you didn't respond? When was the last time you didn't explain yourself and just chose silence? Not ghosting, not revenge, not manipulation, but a power move grounded in confidence. That's the kind of silence I'm talking about. The kind that speaks volumes, the kind that drives him crazy because he's not used to it. We live in a world where everyone wants instant answers and instant responses. So many of us got what we did, instant forgiveness and instant validation. But sometimes the strongest message is no message at all. Because here's what happens when you go quiet in the right way. He starts to feel the absence of your energy, your attention, your nurturing, your presence. You gave so much of it, maybe too much. But now you're quiet, you're unavailable, you're not chasing, you're not clarifying, you're not justifying. And trust me, that silence will make more noise than any speech, any text, or any outburst ever could. Because the real power is when you no longer need to explain your worth, when your boundaries speak louder than your words. This isn't about playing games. It's about showing through action that your peace, your standards, and your self-respect are not up for negotiation. So if you've been overthinking, wondering, should I say something? Maybe the answer is, don't. Let your silence do what your words no longer need to. And watch how it shifts everything. Watch how it drives him crazy. Not because you're trying to, but because your absence finally makes him feel the impact of your presence. You're not being cold, you're being clear. You're not punishing, you're protecting. And that, my friend, is the most attractive thing in the world. When people think of silence in relationships, they often associate it with passivity or avoidance. But the kind of silence that truly shifts dynamics, the kind that drives a man crazy, isn't passive at all. It's intentional. It's purposeful. It's one of the strongest power moves a high-value woman can make. Most people are trained to fill every gap with explanation, every pause with apology, and every uncomfortable moment with reassurance. But when a woman chooses silence, not out of fear, but out of self-respect, it becomes a powerful declaration. I don't need to fight for space. I am the space. This is the silence that commands attention. It doesn't scream, it doesn't plead, it simply exists in a way that shifts the energy in the room and, most importantly, within the man who once took that presence for granted. This kind of silence isn't about disappearing to punish someone. It's about disengaging from dynamics that don't serve your value. It's stepping away from proving yourself, convincing someone of your worth, or begging them to choose you. You step back, not because you don't care, but because you care too much about yourself to keep overgiving. It's not a cry for attention. It's a clear, calm, quiet statement. I won't compete for someone who should have never made it a competition. That level of self-assurance is rare, and it's incredibly attractive. When you don't respond right away, when you stop reaching out, and you resist the urge to justify yourself, you're teaching the other person how to value your presence. It's a mirror you're holding up to their behavior. And suddenly, without you saying a word, he starts to notice the absence. He remembers the warmth you brought, the attention you offered, and the way you used to show up. That contrast between before and now creates tension, and that tension is where realization is born. The silent move creates curiosity, regret, and sometimes even fear. Fear that he may have lost something meaningful, that he pushed too far, that you might not come back this time. What he doesn't realize immediately is that your silence didn't just happen. It was earned. It was the result of you finally realizing that you've said enough, done enough and waited long enough, silence becomes your boundary. It becomes the new standard. And when you can sit in that silence without needing to fix or rescue the situation, you hold all the power. You become unpredictable in the best way. You're no longer playing into the dynamic where he controls the rhythm. Now you've changed the rhythm entirely. And that shift, it doesn't go unnoticed. So when you stay silent, with intention, rooted in confidence rather than insecurity, you're not being passive, you're being powerful. Because you're choosing not to chase validation. You're choosing to stand in your worth. And that quiet strength, that's what truly drives him crazy. There's something magnetic about a woman who suddenly pulls back. Not with drama, not with bitterness, but with calm certainty. When a man is used to your energy, your constant availability, your emotional investment, your daily check-ins, your encouragement, and your warmth, he comes to rely on it, often without even realizing how much. It becomes part of his routine, his emotional diet. Then one day, when that attention isn't there, it disrupts him in a way he didn't expect. This shift doesn't happen because you've made a big announcement or posted a cryptic message. It happens because you simply withdraw your energy and attention with quiet strength. And that withdrawal changes everything. When someone has grown used to you being emotionally present, your silence is no longer just the absence of words, it's the presence of mystery. He starts wondering what's changed. He replays your last conversation. He checks your social media. He wonders if he misread how much you cared. And suddenly the thing he was once so confident in, your consistent attention, is now uncertain. That uncertainty creates curiosity. That curiosity quickly turns into obsession. And the more he tries to figure out what's going on, the more he feels the loss of what he used to take for granted. This is the moment when your value begins to increase in his mind, not because you're doing something manipulative, but because you're doing something rare. You've stopped feeding the dynamic. You've removed the energy that made the connection feel one-sided. He now has to sit with the discomfort of missing you. He has to wonder what it meant to him when you were there. He has to feel your absence fully before he can appreciate your presence truly. The mistake many women make is thinking they have to say something to make an impact. But the truth is, sometimes it's the not saying that says the most. When you're always available, he doesn't have to question anything. But when you step back, he begins to question everything. That space you've created forces him to confront the fact that your emotional support, your texts, your affection, none of it was guaranteed. It came from a place of choice. And when you stopped choosing to pour into him, he's left to realize what that support truly meant. This isn't about punishing someone or making them chase you out of pride. It's about giving both of you the space to see clearly. And often, in that silence, he gains the clarity he lacked when things were loud and busy and constant. Your silence lets him see where he really stands, not where you try to convince him he should be. That realization hits different. It wakes him up. It makes him remember what it felt like to be seen by you, supported by you, and to have a place in your life. And when that place is suddenly not so secure anymore, it creates a powerful internal shift in him that words alone could never cause. Most people believe that the best way to set boundaries is to speak them out clearly. And yes, communication is important, but sometimes the strongest boundary isn't what you say, it's what you no longer respond to. It's what you no longer engage with. Silence, in many cases, is the clearest, sharpest boundary there is. When you stop responding to disrespect, inconsistency, or crumbs of attention, you send a powerful message. This no longer meets my standard. Not in anger, not in a fight, not in a long emotional conversation, but in your calm disengagement. And that shift creates an impact he won't be able to ignore. Many women stay in patterns of over-explaining and over-justifying because they feel like silence will be misunderstood. But here's the truth. Someone who genuinely cares and is emotionally mature will notice your silence and reflect on what led to it. Someone who doesn't care about you in the first place would ignore your words anyway. So in many situations, silence is actually a more effective way of separating those who respect you from those who never did. When you choose not to argue, not to chase, and not to beg, you create a space for self-respect to grow. You send a loud and clear message, not just to him, but to yourself. I am done negotiating my worth. When a man is used to being in control of the emotional rhythm, when he can send a lazy text and get a quick reply, when he can be distant and still receive warmth, your sudden quietness disrupts the script. It throws off the balance that worked in his favor. He now has to face the reality that your attention was a privilege, not a guarantee. Your silence becomes the boundary that holds him accountable. It becomes the wall that says, I don't engage with half-hearted effort anymore. And you don't have to raise your voice or send a long message to prove that. You simply stop participating in dynamics that are below your standard. There's power in choosing what you no longer react to. You don't get pulled into emotional games. You don't waste energy explaining things to someone who already knows what they did. And most importantly, you reclaim the emotional energy you were giving away so freely. That energy, when redirected inward, helps you build confidence, clarity, and strength. While he's over there wondering why you're suddenly distant, you're over here reconnecting with your self-worth. Silence also gives you the emotional space to watch his behavior more objectively. It's no longer about what he says. Now it's about what he does when you stop chasing. Does he step up? Does he show up differently? Or does he disappear altogether? Either way, your silence reveals the truth. And that truth protects you more than any conversation ever could. You're not cold, you're not distant, you're simply holding a boundary that says, if you want access to me, come correct, or don't come at all. It's human nature to want to react when we're hurt, confused, or feeling disrespected. The urge to respond, defend, explain, or even lash out can feel overwhelming. But the truth is, not reacting is often the most powerful reaction you can give. When someone expects you to respond a certain way, whether it's with emotion, frustration, or desperation, and you don't give them what they anticipate, it shifts the entire dynamic. That moment of silence becomes a mirror, reflecting their own behavior back to them, without any interference. It's uncomfortable for them, and that discomfort often leads to a deeper realization than any argument ever could. The person who stays calm when everything gets messy is the one who holds the real power. When a man pushes your boundaries, disappears, sends mixed signals, or shows up inconsistently, he might expect you to be emotional, to chase, to ask questions, or demand answers. That's the pattern he's used to. But when instead you take a breath, step back, and choose silence, not out of fear, but out of strength, he's left with nothing to push against. There's no conflict to escalate, no reaction to control. He loses the power he had in the emotional rhythm, and you regain yours by simply doing nothing. Not reacting doesn't mean you don't feel anything. It means you've decided that your energy is too valuable to be wasted on someone who hasn't earned a front row seat to your emotion. You stop giving people the satisfaction of knowing they can push your buttons. Your silence shows that your peace matters more than a temporary victory. That kind of composure is not only rare, it's unforgettable. People remember how you handled things, not when they went well, but when things got hard. And when you can stay graceful, grounded, and detached from the need to prove a point, it says more than any speech ever could. Your silence forces him to ask himself the questions you used to ask for him. Why did she stop replying? Why did she stop showing up? Why did she let go so easily? These thoughts echo louder in his mind the longer you remain still. And unlike words, which can be dismissed or twisted, silence stays. It lingers. It creates space for reflection, and it forces him to do the emotional labor that, up until now, you may have been doing for both of you. In a world where people are constantly reacting, always online, always available, choosing not to engage stands out. It makes people curious. It makes them pay attention. It makes them realize that you're not like the rest. You're not going to beg someone to treat you right. You're not going to entertain someone's inconsistency. You're not going to lower your standards just to keep someone around. You'll walk away in silence before you let someone disrespect your energy. And that silence, that quiet confidence, it's what truly drives him crazy. Because deep down, he knows he lost access to something rare. And this time, you're not coming back just because he noticed. Choosing silence when you could speak, when you could confront, when you could explain, is often misunderstood. Some think it's about playing games, trying to manipulate the other person into chasing you or feeling guilty. But true silence, the kind that shifts a relationship dynamic, isn't rooted in manipulation. It's rooted in emotional maturity. It comes from a place of clarity and self-respect. You're not trying to hurt anyone. You're just no longer willing to hurt yourself by engaging in situations that lack emotional safety, reciprocity, or effort. When you choose to be silent, it's not because you don't know what to say. It's because you know that saying it won't change anything, and you've outgrown the need to force understanding where there's none. Emotional maturity means being able to sit with your feelings without having to dump them on someone else. It means understanding that not every moment requires a reaction, not every inconsistency deserves a confrontation, and not every hurt needs to be voiced to be valid. Sometimes the most evolved thing you can do is to quietly remove yourself from situations that drain you, confuse you, or devalue you. Silence in this context is not about control, it's about conservation. You're conserving your energy, your peace, your self-worth. And that act alone speaks volumes. When you don't react, he's left to confront his own behavior without your influence. He can't deflect blame, twist your words, or distract with charm. He's just left with silence. And that silence forces him to sit with the discomfort of his own actions or lack thereof. And if he's emotionally aware, he'll start to realize that something shifted, something meaningful slipped away, and that this silence isn't about creating drama. It's about closing a chapter that no longer serves your growth. That's emotional maturity. Knowing that walking away quietly protects your dignity more than staying and pleading for effort ever could. This kind of silence also signals a major shift in your emotional baseline. You're no longer reactive because you're no longer operating from insecurity or fear of loss. You know that someone who truly wants to be in your life will make the effort, will communicate clearly, and will meet you in the middle. You're done filling in the blanks, making excuses, or explaining what should already be understood. When you choose to go quiet, you're not withdrawing love, you're redirecting it back to yourself. And perhaps the most powerful part of this maturity is that it doesn't require closure. You've given yourself permission to move forward without needing their understanding or approval. You've stopped trying to fix what's broken when it's not your job to glue the pieces together alone. And in doing so, you gain something far more valuable than a temporary response. You gain peace, self-trust, and emotional freedom. That's not a game. That's growth. And in a world where many still react out of wounds, your quiet decision to rise above the noise is what sets you apart. And it's exactly what makes him notice what he's lost. Thank you for watching, listening, and for taking the time to invest in yourself. Every moment you choose self-respect over reaction, silence over chaos, and boundaries over begging, you become stronger, more radiant, and more in control of your own story. Sometimes the most powerful move is the one no one saw coming. Take care, stay strong, and thank you for being here.